I have to congratulate you because I see that you just grew to a new facility.
Well, what happened was, the Pagels started here in the house, and I used to bake, primarily for friends of my CrossFit gym. And I was doing, before I started making Pagels, I was doing muffins and cookies and blondies because I adopted, a paleo lifestyle when I turned 50. And my wife, Nina, very subterranean, started following a paleo lifestyle also. And then when she realized that she was feeling better and certain ailments like asthma and a fever of unknown origin and sinus infections were all gone after a couple of months, she told me I needed to learn how to bake because she's got a bit of a sweet tooth. So I started baking for her basically, and then I started baking, for members of the CrossFit gym, and we went on a family vacation, the five of us, to St. Lucia, and we discovered, or I discovered, I should say, cassava flour, which was the key ingredient to the Pagel. So we came back, and I started messing around with bread recipes, and as a Jew from Long Island, I said, man, I miss a good bagel. And I Googled, and I, trial and error, through many, many, many years, we have the Pagel as it is in its current form. And I graduated from the kitchen here, and I didn't even know I didn't know, Darren, that you weren't allowed to bake out of your own home to sell. And as it turns out, as I learned more about running a baking business, you could do that, but you would have to only sell at flea markets and fairs. You couldn't sell it to other retailers. You couldn't sell it to consumers over the internet, which was how I was growing my business. And I transitioned my business from the house to a food incubator over in Amityville called the Kitchen Co-op. And I knew that I had to be the only company in that facility when I was producing Pagels, because I have a lot of customers that are very sensitive to gluten with celiac and things like that. And the Pagel was, at the time, was lab tested, and it was certified paleo, and it was also certified gluten-free. They couldn't certify the facility because there were other companies in there when I wasn't there. So I was able to get it lab tested, though. And then over the past, I would say, couple of years, as the product gained traction and I got into retailers and got in with a couple of distributors, and as my online business really took on a life of its own, my crew and I, we were baking 5 days a week and 6 days a week, and we just couldn't keep up with demand. So, out of shit grows flowers, or I don't know what the saying is, but this pandemic was really an opportune time for me to transition out of that kitchen into a full-scale commercial facility in the business. They call it a co-packer. And yeah, that's where I'm producing now. So, where I could do maybe on a really good shift, 100 dozen Pagels, this place will produce in a shift, an 8-hour shift, 30,000 units. So, now we're at a whole nother level, which is great. And it'll give me the opportunity to reintroduce, other products that I had to stop making because I just, the Pagel took over 90% of my business once it was introduced. So all the other stuff, the muffins, the cookies, and all those ancillary products really just, they're only for personal consumption at this point.
Is the Bedrock Bakers name a Flintstones reference per se?
Yes, absolutely. A lot of people don't know that. All throughout middle school, high school, college, and even after college, my nickname was Barney and it's still Barney for the people that have known me for 50 odd years, because there was a dude in like 8th grade, Timmy Crouch, who one day in the locker room, he said, you really look like Barney Rubble. And I was like, really? I don't kind of see the resemblance. And it stuck. And it followed me from middle school to high school. Because I was a lacrosse player in college, there were guys that I played lacrosse with in high school that I also played lacrosse with in college. So, they called me Barney, so everyone called me Barney. And, when I decided to adopt a paleo lifestyle, it kind of made sense that, the Stone Age, the Flintstones, it just, Bedrock Bakers. It's a great name.
I don't disagree there. I don't see the resemblance personally. People who follow you on Instagram see you cycling all the time. So Barney Rubble was not in shape like this.
Yeah, and if he was, he wouldn't have the rad bike that I get on, which I have, Darren. Quite honestly, because of this business, it was a true passion of mine. And then I kind of morphed into CrossFit, which didn't require the same amount of time as cycling did. And this past Memorial Day weekend, I rode 3 out of 4 days. I got back on the bike yesterday. And now, because my time is not so consumed with producing Pagels, and I'm able to, run a business the way that it should be run. Although, any successful entrepreneur is always going to do it from the ground up. And that's the only way I knew how to run. My wife, Nina, kept saying, when are other people going to bake for you? When are other people going to bake for you? And I just couldn't give up control, because everything needed to be just so, especially because it was, I'm not going to say it was my baby, but it was because I needed everything to just be perfect. And now that I'm back on the bike, I can't believe how much I missed it. Not just getting out and riding by myself, but I had a great group for a number of years. The camaraderie of it, and just it's awesome. I love it.
And you've mentioned CrossFit and you've mentioned cycling, but people who look at your Instagram account will see it's followed by Diamond Dallas Page. Has ZDPY been in your repertoire as well?
Not yet. I used to belong, prior to the lockdown, to Lifetime over in Syosset, and they have a great yoga program. So, the combination of CrossFit and yoga was great for me. Yoga, aside from the flexibility, it was good for my mental state. And, I don't know if you saw through social media, the end of 2019 was not kind to Steven Friedman physically.
Yeah, I heard you overcame some heart stuff.
Yeah, I had a heart attack in yoga. I didn't even know it back in March. And then about 7 years ago, when I turned 50, Nina demanded, that I make the rounds with doctors, cardiologists, the colonoscopy, all that stuff. And when I went to the cardiologist, I'm not a big fan of doctors, not because I'm afraid of them, just because I'm fit, and maybe it's just out of stupidity and me thinking that I'm Superman. The cardiologist picked up a murmur in my heart, and we'd been following it for 6-7 years. And I guess when I had the stent put in, they did not like the way the leak in my mitral valve had increased. So the open heart surgery that I had in November was completely unrelated to what went on in March. What went on in March was like that came out of nowhere. That messed me up, not so much physically, but messed me up mentally, because, and I also come from a line, my grandfather had a heart attack, my father had a heart attack, and I just refused to believe that I wasn't able to reverse that genetic defect, so to speak. And, the saying that not a mantra, but it's definitely something in my repertoire, that you can run from your genes, you just can't hide from them. The open heart surgery was an 8-hour procedure. And thank God for the surgeon that I had, because, I just begged him prior to the surgery to do everything he possibly could to repair the valve and not replace it. And thank God he was able to repair it. So now I don't have to be on blood thinners, because that stuff it's nasty. So, that was the end of 2019, and 2020 has been, aside from this pandemic, it started off, really amazing, business-wise, watching Max at AEW, and just a whole lot of good stuff.
Did the wrestling fandom come from you or your wife at all?
No, it came from my brother-in-law. When Max was 5 years old, Nina's brother, Alan, brought over as a birthday gift some wrestling figures. And he just fell in love with it. He introduced him to the WWE. And from that point on, from 5 years old, the thousands of dollars that Nina spent at Blockbuster and Hollywood Video was just incredible. And then, I guess, Max was an unbelievable football player, but he wasn't a football fan. And I'm a big, big, big football fan. Giants, just any football, college football. And, I got him involved in PAL football at a very young age. And he really didn't take to it. He wasn't for him. He just wanted to be involved with wrestling. But then later, I guess probably as he got a little bit older, he got back into football, but he would only watch like a quarter of a game with me, just because he didn't really care. He wasn't a fan of the game, and he would leave and go in the back room and put his DVDs in and just watch wrestling. And then right after his bar mitzvah, I thought his passion, aside from taking him to WWE events, I thought I'm not going to say passion, his mania for consuming content, I thought it was over. But I didn't realize that he was just watching it now online. Yeah, it just, he still watches wrestling like a lunatic. He's just a student of the game, of now his profession.
And other wrestlers besides DDP follow you on social media. Besides your son, do you have any favorites on the current AEW roster?
Yeah, I love Jericho just because anyone who can recreate themselves the way that he has, it's just awesome to watch. And, the fact that Max was able to hold his own in the ring with Chris, I thought that was unbelievable. I was never really a fan of Goldust, but I find myself being a fan of Dustin Rhodes because he's 50, so I'm 57, so he's like a peer. I've gotten to meet a bunch of the guys on the roster, and they're all great guys. But I myself, Darren, the only reason I'm a fan is because it's my son's profession. I did not grow up as a wrestling fan. I did not know who Dusty Rhodes was. I knew the name. I didn't know, who Kurt Hawkins was until I met him when I enrolled Max at Creative Pro in Hicksville. I didn't know anything really, other than I was a hardline baseball, hockey, football guy. I was that quintessential jock in high school. With the whole college story, as you know, when he came home from school after that week of not even being in a classroom, just going up there to practice football for the upcoming season, and him showing up, at 2 a.m, and then having the conversation with him after the dust settled a few days later on the patio in the backyard, I looked him in the face and I was like, dude, we're going to give you the same 4 years that we gave Alice at Syracuse, that we gave Carly at University of Florida. 4 years, you got it. And we'll support you. And the kid did it in 2. It was like, he put 84,000 miles on his truck in a year. It's crazy. So now, 5 years later, he's a top name in the business. It's crazy. So crazy.
Since you've been very generous with your time, I'm going to ask you the last thing, and that's what's the best way that people reading this and or hearing this can get their hands on Pagels if they're not on Long Island?
Oh, online at bedrockbakers.com. Give us a follow on Instagram at @thepagel_. And I hate to sound like DDP, but first-time customers get buy one, get one half off. We ship nationwide. The product ships frozen. It thaws out in transit, and you refreeze it when it comes in the mail. We are, unfortunately, because of the pandemic, we expect to be, in more retailers nationwide, probably towards the end of this year. But right now, the majority of our business is through our website.
And for people that are going to be heating it because they get it in the mail, is it toaster or oven or microwave? What's the best way to heat it?
The best way to consume a Pagel or to handle a Pagel is slice it upon receipt, put it back in the bag, put it in the freezer, take one out, toast it fully thawed until it's nice and golden, and then love it up. The other nice thing now about the Pagel is we are in a dedicated gluten-free facility, and we're also kosher. So those of us that follow a kosher lifestyle and a gluten-free lifestyle, you now have the cleanest gluten-free bagel on the market, certified gluten-free, certified kosher, and certified delicious.
Paltrocast.